Snake, respond! Snake? Snake!
Hey, and welcome back to the Average Joe Nerdcast. I'm Nate, your resident Average Joe, and today I want to spend just a little time talking about one of my favorite video game franchises ever made. Because, well, honestly, Metal Gear Solid just fucking rules. And I think the older I get, the more I appreciate what an absolute miracle this series truly is. Because when I was 10, Metal Gear was cool. Sneaking around in air vents, cardboard boxes, cyborg ninjas, nuclear walking dinosaur robot tanks. It was awesome. Then you replay these games as an adult, and suddenly you realize, wait a minute, this thing is talking about nuclear deterrence, information warfare, proxy conflicts, AI censorship, child soldiers, legacy, propaganda, identity, the military-industrial complex, the nature of free will, and whether human beings are destined to become whatever the systems around them need them to be, which is wild. Because somehow it also has a vampire, a man who shoots bees, a roller skating terrorist, a photosynthetic sniper, a ghost arm, a meowing Russian cowboy, a 30-foot tall bipedal robot dinosaur, and a president of the United States who grabs your balls. Dude, what even is this game? And honestly, I think that's why I love Metal Gear, not the ball grabbing. No. Oh no. I love it because it starts as military espionage. And then every game feels like Hideo Kojima looked at the previous installment and said, "Oh, you thought that was weird? Hold my sake." And today, I don't really have some grand thesis. I don't think I'm trying to explain why Metal Gear matters. I think I just want to spend a little bit of time celebrating one of the coolest, smartest, stupidest, most batshit insane franchises gaming has ever produced. Because, well, sometimes an episode doesn't need to be a deep dive into society. Sometimes you just want to hang out and talk about the stuff that just kicks ass. And my friends, Metal Gear kicks ass. So here's what's funny. A lot of people think Metal Gear just kind of appeared out of nowhere in 1998, kicked the door open and changed gaming forever, and then Kojima immediately ascended into whatever weird higher plane of existence he's currently operating in. But Metal Gear actually goes all the way back to 1987, and honestly, the origin story is kind of hilarious. Because stealth gameplay wasn't necessarily born because Kojima sat down one day and said, "I have a vision." No. The hardware basically looked at him and said, "Brother, we can't do Rambo." They couldn't have huge firefights. They couldn't have dozens of enemies running around on screen. The system would have probably caught fire, folded in on itself, made a sad noise, and politely asked everyone just to pack it up and go home. So Kojima does something genuinely clever. He goes, "Okay, what if instead of fighting everyone, you just don't?" And just like that, one of gaming's coolest genres is accidentally born, which honestly feels very Kojima. Even when he's solving technical problems, he's finding ways to be weird and creative. The original Metal Gear already had a lot of the stuff we'd come to associate with the series. Secret military organizations, super weapons, nuclear anxiety, Big Boss, Foxhound, conspiracies, soldiers being used by governments that don't particularly care what happens to them afterwards. But then 1998 rolls around and the PlayStation 1 is everywhere. Games are getting bigger, more cinematic. Developers are starting to realize they can tell stories much differently. And then Metal Gear Solid shows up, and I genuinely think Kojima is still trying to convince us he's making a military espionage game. And for a little while, he actually pulls it off. He behaves himself. For all of 5 minutes. You've got a nuclear disposal facility in the heart of the Fox Archipelago in Alaska. There's a hostage crisis. Next generation special forces, peak PlayStation 1 stealth gameplay, and David Hayter sounding like he gargles gravel and smokes Marlboro Reds every morning for breakfast. And for a little while, Metal Gear Solid feels relatively grounded. Then a psychic starts reading your memory card. And after that, all bets are off, my friends. And man, Shadow Moses Island. You know, I genuinely think Shadow Moses might be one of the coolest settings ever put into a video game. And I know nostalgia goggles are absolutely a thing, trust me, I know. But replaying Metal Gear Solid as an adult, I still think it holds up because Kojima is actually exercising restraint here. Well, by Metal Gear Solid standards. Normal people standards? Absolutely not. But Metal Gear Solid standards? He is behaving. Because even in the normal Metal Gear game, you've still got the Psychic, a giant dude carrying a Vulcan cannon that probably weighs more than my F-150, an invisible cyborg ninja, and your genetically identical brother trying to work through some very complicated daddy issues. And somehow, this is as grounded as the franchise ever gets. No vampires or B-guy or roller skating bomb enthusiasts just yet. Kojima still has one hand on the wheel. And speaking of psychics that read your memory card, Psycho Manus. And if you were around in 98, you already know where I'm going with this. I mean, I'm serious, you just had to be there. Games at the time did not do this. Games barely knew what games could do. Most games at the time were still operating under a pretty simple philosophy. Jump, shoot, collect this thing. But Metal Gear looked at all of that and said, hey, what if we psychologically traumatized an entire generation of children? The man reads your memory card, comments on games you've played, moves your controller, and makes your television look like it's malfunctioning. And younger me had absolutely no framework whatsoever for understanding what was happening. Dude, this man knew I played Castlevania. How? Who told him? Do I need to unplug something? Do I need a priest? Do I need to apologize for using cheat codes in GoldenEye? What is happening? And the beautiful thing is, people still talk about the Psycho Manus fight 28 years later. There are games I played just last year that I could not tell you a single boss from. But everyone remembers the guy that gaslit an entire generation of PlayStation 1 owners. And then, you've got Gray Fox. And look, if you were a kid in the late 90s, Gray Fox was probably one of the coolest human beings you'd ever encountered. A cyborg ninja shows up, cuts people in half, runs along the walls, can turn invisible at will, starts saying things like, hurt me more. And as a kid, you're just sitting there thinking, hey, that seems incredibly unhealthy. But he is also the coolest person that I've ever seen in a video game. And then you get older and realize, oh, he's deeply traumatized. And you know what? Metal Gear does that constantly. It lures you in with the cool shit, and then suddenly you're in someone else's therapy session. And honestly, I kind of respect it. And then there's Liquid Snake, who I genuinely love because if you strip away all the Foxhound stuff, all the L'Enfant Terrible, all the Genome Soldier stuff, Liquid's entire motivation is basically, Daddy never loved me! And that's it. That's the whole story. Metal Gear is occasionally just 3 generations of emotionally damaged men having the world's most expensive family argument. And somehow, it all still kicks ass. And then Metal Gear Rex stands up, and Liquid starts monologuing. And at that point, I can only imagine that Snake is questioning every decision that has led him to this point. And Kid Me was just sitting there thinking, video games cannot possibly get any cooler than this. And you know what? I still kind of think that's true. And then Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty comes out, and I don't know if younger listeners truly understand what a seismic event this game truly was. The demo by itself melted our collective brains. You played a snake, and the graphics looked impossible. There was realistic rain effects, ice cubes melting in glasses, individual bullets in magazines, glass breaking realistically, soldiers communicating realistically. And in 2001, this looked like alien technology. We all bought this game thinking, hell yeah, more Solid Snake. And Kojima looked at millions of people and said, absolutely, for about an hour. And then he hands us Raiden, and people understandably lost their minds. I remember people acting like Kojima had personally driven to their house and keyed their car. Who is this? Where's Solid Snake? And honestly, I kind of love Kojima for it. Because the older I've gotten, the more I appreciate how absolutely committed this man is to trolling his own audience. He doesn't just subvert expectations, he kidnaps your expectations, puts them in a trunk and drives them across state lines, changes their name, and sends them back 3 games later with an eye patch. And then things get a little weird. Like, really weird. Because remember, the first game had a psychic, an invisible cyborg ninja, clone drama, and a giant walking nuclear battle tank. And Metal Gear Solid 2? Well, that's where Kojima looks directly into the camera and says, I'm done pretending. Suddenly, there's Vamp. And let me just pause, because I love introducing Vamp to people who have never experienced Metal Gear. Oh yeah, Metal Gear has a vampire. And people go, what, like Dracula? And I'm like, no, much stranger. The man runs on water, throws knives, gets shot repeatedly, refuses to elaborate on anything, is vaguely homoerotic, has a very tragic backstory, and just exists. And everyone in Metal Gear is just like, yeah, dude, that's Vamp. No one really seems that concerned. No one calls a scientist, no one asks a question. They're just like, damn, that's Vamp. What even is this game? And then Fat Man shows up, and I love Fat Man because Kojima apparently woke up one morning and said, hey, what if one of Batman's villains wandered into my game? So here's Fat Man. He's overweight, he's roller skating, he's planting bombs, he's drinking wine through a bendy straw, and he's wearing what looks like a bomb technician outfit designed by Hot Topic. And somehow, he's memorable as hell. And this is where I think Metal Gear officially becomes Metal Gear, because Kojima realizes something. He understands that military fiction can actually be kind of boring if everyone acts like a normal human being. So he just starts adding weirdos. And somehow it all works, because Metal Gear Solid 2 is both simultaneously a commentary on information control, a prediction about digital echo chambers, hello 2026, a meditation on identity, and honestly, that's all incredible. Because I don't think Kojima understands moderation. I think Kojima has 2 distinct settings: military thriller and absolute nonsense. And Metal Gear Solid 2 is where he discovers he can do both at the same time. And my friends, once Kojima realizes that fully, there is no putting him back in the box. Oh, and then Kojima introduces another snake, because apparently 2 wasn't enough. Oh no, you've got Solid Snake, Liquid Snake, and now we've got Solidus Snake, who was the President of the United States during the events of Metal Gear Solid. But not the president who grabs your balls. Different president. Come on, it's Metal Gear Solid. Just keep up. Also, and can I just ask, who names these people? Solid, Liquid, Solidus. Shouldn't the third one be Gas Snake, Vapor Snake, Mist Snake, Fart Snake? At what point did Kojima sit down and go, nah, Solidus, perfect? And not a single person at Konami raised their hand. No one. Not one person. No one went, excuse me, Mr. Kojima, respectfully, what the hell is a Solidus? No. Everyone just nodded, collected a paycheck, and went home. But you know what? honestly, I kind of admire that level of confidence because Metal Gear asks a lot of its audience. It basically says, okay, there's another Snake. He was also the president. And now he's wearing a Dr. Doom suit. And he's fighting an androgynous ninja on top of Federal Hall. What is even happening? And then we get to Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. And honestly, I think this might be Kojima's masterpiece. Not because it's the smartest or the deepest or the most important. I just think Snake Eater is Kojima's masterpiece because this is the game where he finally stops pretending to have limits. He's free now. No one can stop him. No one supervising him, no one at Konami is brave enough to ever say no. This man has unlocked creative mode, and somehow he uses that power responsibly. Mostly. Because Snake Eater is absolutely ridiculous. And I mean that lovingly. You start the game and immediately Kojima is like, okay, James Bond. And you're thinking, hell yeah, dude, cool. Cold War espionage, 1964, jungle infiltration, CIA, KGB, secret weapons, double and triple agents. Excellent, I'm in. Then about 5 hours later, you're fighting a man made entirely out of bees. Bees! We're doing bees now. And the worst part, no one questions it. Snake doesn't look at the pain and go, holy shit, is that guy covered in bees? No. Everyone in Metal Gear reacts to insanity the same way people react to bad weather. Just kind of annoyed. Like, bee guy. Must be a Monday. And honestly, I respect it, because the Pain somehow isn't even the weirdest person in the Cobra unit. You've got the End, who is approximately 700 years old, photosynthesizes, sleeps in the dirt, can die of old age if you literally just wait long enough. And if 15-year-old me learned anything from Metal Gear Solid 3, it's apparently that old people are terrifying. And then there's the Fear, who kind of looks like Gollum discovered Monster energy drinks. There's the Fury, an astronaut with a flamethrower. The Sorrow, who might actually be a ghost. And that's the thing, Metal Gear asks you to accept all of this, with no explanations, no science, no PowerPoint presentation. Kojima just walks into the room and says, here's a photosynthetic sniper. Figure it out. And somehow I did. We all did, because Snake Eater just kicks ass. The survival mechanics kick ass. The camouflage system kicks ass. Even the soundtrack kicks ass. And the ladder scene kicks ass. I don't know how Kojima managed to make climbing a ladder emotionally significant, but by God, he did it. And then we get to the boss. And I don't even want to make jokes for a minute, because the boss is legitimately one of the greatest characters in gaming. Period. No notes, and no, I will not be taking questions. She walks into this franchise and steals every scene she's in. She beats Naked Snake's ass repeatedly, has one of the coolest speeches in all of gaming, and then Kojima does something almost unfair. He takes this franchise that's been absolutely insane for 15 hours. Bee people, ghosts, flamethrower astronauts, old men turning into trees, and then suddenly asks you to kill someone you genuinely do not want to kill. And somehow it all works. And I mean really works, because beneath all the insanity, Metal Gear is weirdly sincere. It genuinely wants you to care about these people, even if one of them was previously a sentient apiary. And then the credits roll, and Big Boss is born. People cry, people sit quietly through debriefing, people immediately replay the game. And Kojima learns a very dangerous lesson. He learns that he can do literally anything. And I mean anything. And people will follow him. People climbed a ladder for 3 minutes straight listening to an absolute banger of a song. And they loved it. The man has officially become unstoppable. And you know what? Good. Because I wouldn't have Metal Gear any other way. And then we get to my personal favorite, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. And I know, some people prefer Snake Eater. Some people swear by the first one. And some people think Sons of Liberty gets better every single year. I get it. And they're all great. But Metal Gear Solid 4, that's my game. Because Metal Gear Solid 4 feels like Kojima was finally given complete and total creative freedom, and everyone at Konami just collectively decided, hey, we're not going to stop him. Honestly, we're kind of scared to. And the result is one of the most self-indulgent, fan service-filled, emotional, batshit insane experiences that I've ever had in gaming. Because the game opens with Old Snake, and immediately I love the premise. Solid Snake has spent these games being one of gaming's biggest badasses. And Kojima goes, cool, he's old now. His knees hurt, his back hurts, he's got a mustache, and he smokes way too much. Snake went from military legend to dad standing up way too fast. And I love that. Because Metal Gear Solid 4 understands something. The hero fantasy is cool. Watching your heroes get older, watching them struggle, watching them still get up and keep going. Now that hits differently. Especially if you've been with these characters since the late 90s. And then Kojima immediately reminds you he's still Kojima. Because now everything is nanomachines. Everything. Everything. You stub your toe? Nanomachines. Bad credit score? Nanomachines. Your dog won't listen? Nanomachines. Marital problems? Believe it or not? Nanomachines. Kojima discovered nanomachines and treated them like Frank's Red Hot. He put that shit on everything. And you know what? I don't even care, because Metal Gear Solid 4 knows exactly what it is. It's a victory lap. It's Kojima taking every toy out of the toy box one last time. And then we get the Beauty and the Beast core, which is simultaneously one of the coolest ideas ever, and one of the horniest things Kojima has ever done. And you know what? That's saying something. Because Kojima is a man who looked at Quiet years later and said, trust me. And everyone collectively said, oh, no. Then we get Shadow Moses again. And come on, you walk back into Shadow Moses and the music kicks in, the snow is falling, and you remember where everything was. And suddenly you're not playing Metal Gear anymore. You're remembering being 10 years old again. And Kojima knows exactly what he's doing. He's weaponizing your nostalgia. And you know what? Seeing as how I'm chronically nostalgic, I'm totally okay with it. Use me, Kojima-san. I consent. And then, he gives us the microwave hallway. And I don't care who you are, that sequence is incredible. Snake is literally cooking alive. Everyone else is fighting for their collective lives. The music is swelling, you're mashing the buttons, your thumbs are hurting. Snake hurts, everyone hurts. And somehow Kojima managed to make me emotionally invested in a man crawling down a damn hallway. How? How does he keep getting away with this? And then, that final fight. Old Snake versus Liquid Ocelot. No giant robots, no guns, no nanomachines. Well, some nanomachines. I mean, come on, it's Metal Gear, let's be realistic. But underneath all the insanity, it boils down to just two old soldiers settling 20 years of baggage. And it's awesome! Because Metal Gear Solid 4 is ridiculous. It absolutely is. It has monkeys who smoke, the Beauty and the Beast core, hour-long cutscenes, Johnny Sasaki somehow becoming important. Everything is nanomachines. Everything! But I think that's why I love it, because Metal Gear Solid 4 feels sincere. Kojima knows it's absurd. The audience knows it's absurd. And everyone just collectively decides, yeah, we're going to have a cry over Snake. And honestly, I did. Because Metal Gear may be stupid, it may be brilliant, it may be both simultaneously. But one thing it never is boring. And my friends, if you're going to spend 20 years making games about vampires, bee-men, cyborg ninjas, and multiple soldiers named Snake, you better not be boring. And Kojima never was. Not even once. And then there's Phantom Pain. And man, I don't even know if I can objectively talk about this game because on one hand, I absolutely loved it. The gameplay is phenomenal. It's the best stealth gameplay in the entire franchise. It has the best controls, the best movement, the best sandbox. Mother Base is addicting. Fultoning goats never stops being funny. Recruiting soldiers never stops being satisfying. You can literally ride around Afghanistan blasting 80s music. And objectively, that's cool as hell. And then there's the rest of it. Because Phantom Pain feels weird. Not bad, not disappointing, just weird. Like you're walking through someone else's dream. Or maybe someone else's divorce proceedings, because by this point, everyone knew Kojima and Konami were basically going through the ugliest breakup in gaming history. And I think you can feel it. The game is unfinished, intentionally, emotionally unfinished. You spend dozens of hours asking, okay, where's the rest? And why do I keep getting end credits every single time I finish a mission? And then eventually you realize, oh, maybe that's the point. It is called the Phantom Pain. And Phantom Pain is feeling something that's no longer there. And Metal Gear fans kind of got Phantom Pain. Because by the end, you're not just missing answers. You're missing Kojima. You're missing closure. You're missing another game that was probably never going to happen. And then Kojima decides to pull one final Kojima, because of course he does. You spend this entire game believing you're Big Boss. And then Kojima looks at you and says, actually, no, you were the medic. And honestly, love it. Because Metal Gear has always been obsessed with identity. Genes, memes, legacies, stories, the legends people build around other people. And Venom Snake might actually be the perfect Metal Gear protagonist. Because he's literally a fan. He's us. He spent years believing in Big Boss, believing in the legend. And eventually, he becomes part of the legend. And you know what? That's kind of beautiful. And then there's Quiet. And look, I know, people have opinions. I have opinions. Everyone has opinions. Kojima has opinions. Kojima's opinions are usually, trust me. And honestly, sometimes I do trust him. And sometimes I don't. But I will say this. By the end of Quiet's story, I genuinely cared. And I hated that I cared. Because Kojima somehow pulled the same damn trick again. He distracts you with absurdity, then sneaks feelings into your backpack when you're not looking. It's his favorite move, and he's been doing it since 1998. And you know what? Respect. And I think that's what I love most about Metal Gear. Metal Gear has never felt manufactured. Sure, it feels messy, it feels self-indulgent, it feels ridiculous and brilliant, and it feels like one guy constantly saying, hey, wouldn't this be cool? And sometimes the answer is absolutely, and sometimes the answer is, Kojima, my friend, what in the hell are you talking about? And somehow those moments are usually my favorite. And I think that's why Metal Gear has stuck with me for so long, because honestly, Metal Gear should not work. It really shouldn't. On paper, the franchise is ridiculous. Military espionage, cool. Nuclear deterrence, interesting. Government conspiracies, makes sense. Then someone at some point says, hey, what if we had a vampire? And no one stops him. Then someone says, hey, what if a dude controlled bees? And no one stops him. What if an old man turns into a tree? No one stops him. Hey, what if the president grabs your junk? No one stops him. What if there are 3 Snake brothers? No one stops him. What if one of them was also the president? No one stops him. What if the explanation for everything is nanomachines? No one stops him. At no point in Metal Gear's development history does it appear anyone walked into Kojima's office and said, hey, maybe dial it back about 10%. Because Kojima doesn't have a 10%. Like I said earlier, Kojima has two settings: military thriller and whatever the hell Metal Gear eventually became. And somehow it all works. Because underneath all the insanity, all the memes, all the weirdness, all the jokes we've made for the last I don't know how long, Metal Gear is always sincere. Snake is sincere, Otacon is sincere, Raiden is sincere, Big Boss is sincere, the boss is sincere. Hell, even Ocelot. And God only knows what Ocelot was doing half the time. Seriously. I stopped trying to understand Ocelot years ago. At some point, you just accept that he's going to show up, spin a revolver, meow at someone, and reveal he's been triple-crossing everyone for the last 20 years, and then dip out. And you know what? Honestly, good for him. Metal Gear never feels cynical. It feels like someone genuinely loved movies, loved books, loved military history, loved anime, loved James Bond, loved sci-fi, loved weird ideas, and just threw everything into a blender, and somehow, instead of exploding, it produced Metal Gear. And maybe that's why I still love it, because Metal Gear reminds me of a time when games could just be unapologetically weird. Before every franchise needed a 10-year roadmap, before every game needed a battle pass, before publishers started treating video games like quarterly earning reports. Metal Gear just felt like one incredibly creative person waking up every single morning and asking, hey, wouldn't this be cool? And honestly, most of the time, yeah, it was. It absolutely was. And maybe that's enough. Maybe not every game needs to teach us something profound. Maybe not every episode needs to be a dissertation on society. Sometimes you just want to sit down with your friends and spend however much time talking about a franchise that has a vampire, a bee-man, a roller skating terrorist, a cyborg ninja, multiple clones, a giant walking robot dinosaur, and a meowing Russian cowboy, and still somehow manage to become one of the greatest series ever made. What is even happening? You know what? I don't know. But I do know this. Metal Gear Solid fucking rules. And I think that's probably the best way I can describe Metal Gear Solid. It is simultaneously one of the smartest franchises that I have ever played, and also one of the dumbest franchises I've ever played. And somehow those two statements are not contradictory. They're the reason it works. It's earnest, it's sincere, it's wildly self-indulgent, and it's occasionally up its own ass. It's sometimes predicting the future, weird, and every single time I hear,
Snake, answer me! Snake! Snake!
I just smile. Because underneath all the nanomachines, all the conspiracies, all the clone drama, all the weirdness, all the 20-minute codec calls, all the ladders, all the monkeys, all the giant walking robot dinosaurs, Metal Gear just feels like someone making exactly the thing they always wanted to make. No compromises, no focus groups, no corporate committee trying to decide whether Ocelot should have a battle pass skin. Just one incredibly creative guy looking at military fiction and saying, yeah, but what if it was completely insane? And honestly, thank God he did. And I don't know about you, but I suddenly have a weird urge to sneak around in a cardboard box for a few hours. And look, I know, I summed up a lot. I skipped stuff, I glossed over entire games, characters, plot twists, and enough lore to make someone editing the Metal Gear wiki develop a stress headache. I know. We didn't spend enough time talking about Otacon, or Sonny, or Emma, or Peace Walker, or Portable Ops, or how Raiden somehow went from, who in the hell is this guy? To, dude, that's one of the coolest characters in gaming. Or why Ocelot might genuinely be the most committed method actor in all of human history. I know. But honestly, after spending 5 episodes talking about Master Chief and having what my therapist described as a surprisingly healthy little self-reflective breakthrough along the way, I kind of just wanted to hang out. I wanted to talk about Metal Gear. I wanted to laugh about the vampire, the bee guy, the roller skating terrorists. And I just wanted to laugh about the ridiculousness and just talk about a franchise that somehow managed to predict social media while also asking me to take a man named Naked Snake completely seriously. Sometimes AJN is digging into grief. Sometimes it's getting mad at the world. Sometimes it's trying to understand why we are the way we are. And sometimes I just want to spend however much time talking about something that just kicks ass. And my friends, Metal Gear kicks ass. Now, before I wrap up, I do have one ask. We're creeping toward episode 100 here at the Average Joe Nerdcast, and I really want that episode to belong to each and every one of us. So tell me, how did you find the show? What's been your favorite episode? Which one made you laugh the most? Which one hit you the hardest? Which one made you yell at your speakers because I got something wrong? And what's a rabbit hole that you want me to jump into next? Shoot me a message at averagejoenerdcast@gmail.com, or leave a comment, or drop it in the lobby on Facebook, or hop over into the Discord. Send smoke signals, attach it to a Metal Gear Ray, and launch it at my house. I don't care, I just want to hear from you. And if you've been looking for a place to nerd out about video games, movies, cartoons, comics, toys, podcasts, weird internet mysteries, or just hang out with people who enjoy this stuff just as much as we do, then pull up a chair. The lobby is always open. I'll have links to the Facebook group and the Discord in the show notes. Huge love, as always, to my player 2, and to my brother from another mother, Ian, who has sat through hours upon hours of me talking about Metal Gear at length. Appreciate you, brother. And to producer Steve, who somehow sat through an entire episode about Metal Gear and never interrupted me, not even once. And to each and every one of you, seriously, thank you. I've been Nate, your resident Average Joe, tactical espionage enthusiast, cardboard box aficionado, and a man who firmly believes the fourth snake should have been named Gas Snake. As always, stay gold, nerd bold, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Game over.